Hey guys, today I want to talk about my favorite homunculus, Albedo, because in patch 2.3, Albedo got some great buffs that straight pushed him up the tier list. Now, Albedo isn't a new 5-star by any means, but for new players, let's go over his kit. Albedo is a sword user that has a 5-hit attack string. His normal attacks look really good, but most people won't be using him for his autos and instead for his support abilities. Albedo's biggest selling point is his elemental skill, Abiogenesis Solar Isotoma, which places a solar isotoma at his location on press, and you can aim where you put it if you hold the ability. When enemies inside the solar isotoma field take damage, a transient blossom will be generated dealing AoE geo damage, scaling off of Albedo's defense, and this effect can be procced every 2 seconds. If a character stands on the flower within the center of the field, the flower will act as an elevator, lifting the character up. And the solar isotoma has a duration of 30 seconds and a skill cooldown of 4 seconds. Basically, his E is his absolute and total bread and butter. That's what everyone uses him for, essentially. It's an amazing ability. And since it's procced every 2 seconds, it doesn't really mess with any of your elemental reactions. For Albedo's burst, we have Tectonic Tide, which deals AoE geo damage in front of him. And if you cast it while inside of his solar isotoma field, it will trigger 7 fatal blossoms that deal more AoE geo damage. But Tectonic Tide and the fatal blossom damage from Tectonic Tide will not generate transient blossoms from the solar isotoma itself, and it's also good to point out Tectonic Tide does not scale with defense. Instead, it scales with Albedo's attack, unless you have Constellation 2, which changes it to a defense scaling ability. Let's check out his passive talents now. His first one is Calcite Might. Transient blossoms generated by solar isotoma deal 25% more damage to enemies below 58% HP, which is nice. It's just essentially an execute for your team. His other passive is Homuncular Nature. Using Tectonic Tide increases the elemental mastery of nearby party members by 125 for 10 seconds, which is a great EM buff for heavy reaction-based teams. And his last talent is Flash of Genius, which is the same as Ayaka. Whenever you create weapon ascension materials, he has a 10% chance to double the product. Why is he so good all of a sudden? Well, he not only got a new best in slot weapon, the Cinnabar Spindle, or the Cinnamon Sword, which was basically just made for him, but he also got the new artifact set, Husk of Opulent Dreams. I have the effect of the set on screen if you want to pause the video and read it for yourself, but TLDR, while he's off field, he will gain stacks, each stack giving 6% defense and 6% geo damage, stacking up to 4 times, giving him a total of 24 defense and 24% geo damage bonus, on top of the 2-piece giving him 30% defense, which is all just stacks on stacks on stacks of scaling to get more damage out of his E. And the geo damage bonus also helps him with his Q damage if you choose to use it. Before anyone says anything, Mihoyo has an absolutely terrible artifact system, and you might not have a good 4-piece of the set to use. I don't really have a great one. Mine is okay at best, but that's okay because he has some other options that we can use. Let's go over his weapons, and then we'll jump into the artifacts. His sword is from the event, so you'll 100% have his sword if you're playing right now in the current patch. You will have the Cinnabar Spindle, so you will have a great sword for him. But if you don't want to use it because your crit rate or your crit damage is just too low and you want it to be higher, you can fix it with a very, very friendly, free-to-play friendly sword, the Harbinger of Dawn. Normally, the downfall in this weapon is that you have to stay above 90% HP to gain its attack increase its crit increase. But since Albedo is pretty much off field 100% of the time, and when he is on field, he's in the iframe of his burst, it's very, very easy to keep the Harbinger of Dawn's passive online. Now, when we look at artifacts, you're not doomed if you don't have Husk of Opulent Dreams. Instead, you can always use 2-piece of Archaic Petra with 2-piece of Husk, giving you your geo damage and your defense percent. If you don't have that, you can use the Archaic Petra with Gladiator with a defense timepiece, or Shiminawa with a defense timepiece. These are 3 options that you can have that will all be great and let you get a lot out of your Albedo. For building him stat wise, it kind of depends on how you want to play him. And really, the only piece you really need to switch around is your sands. Unless you have him at Constellation 2, which then defense sands will just be the best that you can put on him. But we're going to be talking about C0 Albedo. And for C0 Albedo, if you want to run a defense sands, you will basically be using him only for his E. His Q won't deal amazing damage if you go defense sands on a C0, but if you're using him for a hyper carry style team, such as playing him on a Zhao team comp or a Eula team comp, then purely building around his E so he can stay off field while the more greedy DPS just hyper carry is a perfect build. If you want your hybrid Albedo setup, that way you can get the most out of his entire kit, you go with your attack sands, especially at C0. And that also gets the most out of his homuncular nature, and that elemental mastery bonus will be great for teams such as the Hu Tao Xingqiu, since her banner just passed. That way you can get bigger vape interactions with the additional 125 elemental mastery for 10 seconds. And you can also even use it on Tartaglia taser comps, because you knew I was going to squeeze Tartaglia in here somewhere. Now, with all that being said, Albedo was already a very good support that was just very slept on. He was very flexible. He hardly interrupted any elemental reactions. He just dealt very good off-field damage. He is just Geo-official. Now, with the buffs, in my opinion, he became an S tier support since his damage and his shielding is so good. Now, the crystallized shields are, they are what they are, but the off-field damage, especially for someone like me who's going to be a Zhao main whenever he gets his rerun, becomes extremely valuable. He's not a must pull, but he is definitely a top tier support now that can fit pretty much any team comp in the game, especially since he's a neutral element of being Geo. I really hope that this brought some newfound appreciation for our chief alchemist at the Knights of Favonia. And if you have any questions you have for me, or any new video ideas you'd like to see me cover, please feel free to leave them down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys. If you could sub or hit the like button, it really helps me out, and I really greatly appreciate it. Oh, and I stream 7 p.m. EST to 11 p.m. every night over at twitch.tv/Splurky if you want to come hang out. And yeah, alright, now that's all. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time. Peace.